Hi, this is Koji again, and I just want to share what I see in astrology. When will this quarantine scare be over? Let's have a peek. And how did we see it ahead of time? So I have a whole bunch of charts here ready for you, and I want to go through them and show you how it's all visible. It's been lined up astrologically, that whole event, as everything else we experience is kind of lined up. The whole story has been written long ago. Astrology is really a clear proof of that if you really go deep into it and into the scientific end. So let's start here with the solar annular eclipse of December 26, 2019, and all charts here I'm using are for Greenwich, UK. That is the 0 meridian, that is where Earth's navel is connected to the cosmos. The 0 meridian by design, it's a cosmic agreement, a collective agreement I should say. And the particular thing about Greenwich also is the Royal Observatory is exactly 1/7 of a circle from the equator, 51 degrees and 29 minutes, just 3 minutes of the exact septile angle, which would be 51 degree and 26 minutes and fractions. Anyway, so that place, Greenwich, has a particular importance, as I can prove you here through these charts. It's pretty obvious. So here we have the chart for December 26th, the solar eclipse. And why am I using this chart as a start? All charts of extraordinary importance, eclipses, planets stationary, lunar stations, full moons, new moons, and planets enter new signs. These are nodal points. These are kind of zero moments when everything is redefined in a subtle way, and there's a reboot happening, a redefinition, an upgrade if you want. So anyway, let's start here with this chart of December 26, and what we see here is at the descendant is SEDNA and Hygeia. Now these two are very important. SEDNA is the planet which has a really large orbit. It's about 11,000 years it takes it to once circle around the sun. Just came back into the inner solar system in the last few decades. That's why it was discovered in the first place. So SETNA is now pretty much this century the closest it will be in 11,000 years. Will be exactly closest, I guess, around 2076. Hygeia is the asteroid related to health, well-being. So this is particularly important to check this asteroid, because it is really what we are all concerned about: our health, our well-being, getting back to sanity and whatever. So SETNA is related with alien things, with secrets, mysteries she brings in from the depths of the cosmos, from far away. It's about 1,000 times as distant the Earth is from the Sun. That's how far out SETNA goes. So all these alien worlds, all the mysteries, secrets are brought into the inner solar system by SETNA, and SETNA has been named after an Inuit goddess of the deep sea, and there's quite a dark story around that character as such. There's lots of difficult energies connected with SETNA, and what makes this even more pronounced is that at 26 degrees we have Algol, a fixed star, which is the eye of the Medusa in the constellation, and has been referred to as Mars and Saturn in its quality. So you get the whole concoction here already, and that's at the descendant of the December 26th solar eclipse chart for Greenwich. The 7th house is what will be experienced by the many. It is kind of how we meet each other in this coming months as a global community, how we connect with one another, and SEDNA, also being a goddess of the deep sea, is very isolated, separated, and we will see that repeatedly, that theme showing up. SEDNA has definitely to do with that whole quarantine situation, and so we can expect Saturn being a major player in that whole experience we are going through, and Saturn naturally also has been really pronounced, prominently placed, and not easy with that Pluto conjunction at the beginning of the year around December 26th. We're looking here, that was where Saturn was, and here is Pluto. Because there's so much happening here, this little line is Pluto and this little line Saturn. They are then going to meet January 12th, and that's another really crucial reboot, which we are still experiencing the aftermath of. Saturn and Pluto, again, difficult energy to start with, which often is experienced during war periods and struggles. Pluto being the planet of power, and Saturn is, you could say, the planet of authority and of law and order. So there's a kind of a crunch going on there, a struggle. I was referring to it as the two titans being in a battle with each other, which certainly we see on many levels in our society going on, mostly hidden, but it is definitely, if you pay attention, you will see it. So this is just the start of the year. Actually, I should say the solar eclipse. So let's move on to the next chart. I just show you all these nodal moments with similar signatures. So the next one we look at is, just give it a second. That's okay. Here we go. That is the Chinese New Year. Now the Chinese New Year is a very important moment too. It's the second new moon after winter solstice, and this is each year on a different day, naturally, but it's basically the new moon in Aquarius, as the sun at winter solstice is at zero Capricorn, and then at spring equinox at zero Aries. So this is the natural midpoint between the two. The winter solstice being the very intimate beginning of the year, the kind of planting the seed moment, and the spring equinox in that sense is when that beginning becomes really openly visible. So this is kind of the hinge between those two important moments. That's why the Chinese recognize that, the ancient Chinese, the sages, that goes back thousands of years, that tradition of celebrating the second new moon after winter solstice. So this is always a key moment which shows what's ahead, what's coming. And now let's see what's here going on the 7th house cusp. Here we have the black moon with Chiron and the vertex being the higher dimensional descendant. So here you can already see that theme of sorrow and facing problems, having to work towards a resolution. That's what those two, when they meet, would imply, what we have definitely been working through. They're still conjunct, these 2 points, the black moon, the moon's apogee, that is the farthest point of the moon's orbit, is slowly moving over a course of 9 years, once around the whole zodiac, and it's in one sign for 7 months. So right now the black moon is here about 8 degrees Aries, still conjunct, however separating from Chiron now. So that's one first clear sign that we're getting out of that zone of problems, hopefully not too far in the future. I want to go back quickly to the first chart I showed you and want to show you this. That's the 4th house cusp of that solar eclipse moment in Greenwich. And here we have Neptune, the black moon, and Chiron. Now Neptune is traditionally seen as a planet which is involved in diseases, infectious diseases particularly. So is Chiron, being the black moon. So this also would have given us a clear hint that something was looming of a difficult nature related to health and isolation. And Saturn and Pluto here too, all in the 2nd house, the 2nd house which also is an earth house, which has to do with physical well-being. So much going on here in the 2nd house, which is about our connection to our bodies and how we feel. The 2nd house very important in that sense too. So these are just the first 2 charts I'm looking at here. Now let's continue to the next one here. That is the moment of spring equinox now we're at. And again you see SEDNA and Hygeia now a little further away already, separating from SEDNA. They were conjunct for months on end. Actually, they were, when Hygeia moved backwards and then stationed very close to SEDNA. So for months on end they were very closely conjunct, roughly between October and February. So this in itself also was an indication that there was a weakness developing globally. We were more perceptive, if you could say, for things affecting our health and well-being. Now here on March 20, that was just around the time when in the United States the quarantine began. SEDNA pretty much exactly at the 4th house cusp globally here. And again, I mentioned that in an earlier time already, we have at that time the black moon and Chiron very closely conjunct the sun, just getting closer into it. So these last days of March definitely were the kind of the peak of the crisis, one could say, in retrospect. And then a day after that, on March 22nd, actually 2 days later, we have Saturn now entering the sign of Aquarius. Now again, there's so much happening here, that's why it's a little hard to read. So Saturn, you see here, is 000 Aquarius. That is right here. This is this line. Jupiter is up here. This is Pallas, Jupiter, Mars and Pluto, all here narrowly aligned with one another. Saturn is here, and then the next one down here is Ceres. That's this one, that's one of the asteroids. So anyway, what I want to point here out is Saturn, when it moved into Aquarius, and Saturn will go back into Capricorn after it stations on May 10 at roughly 2 degrees, going back into Capricorn by early July, and then having its second ingress into Aquarius not before December of this year. So this first ingress chart of Aquarius, that's why I marked here with a Roman 1, to show that this is valid for that first few months. Saturn is dipping into this new energy. Now, first of all, when Saturn is at the ascendant, that's always a phase of retreat, of separation, of particularly in your personal chart, you will experience that when Saturn moves over your ascendant, it is a time you're not really out in the world. I remember when this happened in my personal chart, it was a time I was in South America, I was sick with a hepatitis, tied down to one single place for 4 months, to having to recover, to finding my strength back and going really inside. So it is kind of that quarantine energy here, very clearly defined globally in that moment when Saturn entered Aquarius, initiating this 4-month period into early July. So already here we can say that probably at the most this phase of being tied down and separated from one another, that social distancing thing, might last into early July. We will get deeper into that as we proceed here through the next few charts. So then, when Jupiter and Pluto were having their conjunction, another nodal moment, another really important reset point, as these are two really slow planets, they meet only every 13 years. It so happens though that this year, again, because Jupiter is much closer to the Sun than Pluto, so Jupiter moves faster and also makes greater swings in its retrogradation. So they met here at 24 degrees 53. That's very close to the ascendant in Greenwich. Jupiter since has proceeded and will come to a halt around 27 degrees Capricorn, then go backwards, back over Pluto once more, and they both move backwards as they are on the other side of the Sun, in that sense, from our perspective. this waving motion of the outer planets is due to the Earth's own movement. It's kind of understandable because we are changing our perspective, and Earth moves relatively faster than these slow moving planets. For that reason, they appear to move backwards for a while every year, these outer planets, all of them. So, and then that means they will have two more conjunctions, one end of June and another one then towards the end of the year. So Jupiter and Pluto, that's a big theme in general for that second part of the year, the second, I would say 8-9 months, as the first one was in April. And we will get more into that in a minute. For now, again, I want to first focus on this sky again. You will be surprised to find that again we have that same configuration as in the chart before. Just you see, here we had SEDNA also close, not that close, but in the one when the Sun entered Aries. That is very unusual that you see so many charts exactly having the same theme. That's actually how mundane astrology works. You also always need confirmations. One single chart never really says too much, but when you have 2, 3, 4 key moments in sequence which all show the same thing, then you can be sure that will show up big time, and that's exactly what we're in the midst of now. So let's go back to this chart here, the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction. Now, yes, SEDNA here again, very strongly implying that her energy is dominating the stage. This is the root after all. Some people might wonder why the vertical axis is not 90 degrees to the horizon axis. That is because of Earth's own inclination. So when this moment occurred in Greenwich at 51 degrees northern latitude, that degree was rising, 23 degrees Capricorn, and that was the degree in midheaven, and that was the degree at the midnight point. So what really now stands out, aside from that SEDNA, is this Jupiter-Pluto conjunction so close to the ascendant, and this already gives it away that aside from this being a difficult time of being tied down and separated and all in isolation, having to do our own things, going inward and finding our creativity and digging for the inner treasures, so to speak. Meanwhile, Jupiter and Pluto are at the ascendant, together here with Pallas, all three together, very narrowly tied together. This is a beautiful conjunction, and it's spurring a fast expansion and growth. Pluto is power, transformation. Jupiter basically is an amplifier. Whenever Jupiter comes in, whatever is there already gets much bigger. Jupiter is the fastest spinning planet in our solar system and is also the largest. So it has a tremendous rotational momentum. Actually, over 60% of the whole solar system's angular momentum is owned by Jupiter a planet of which makes things move, which really increases, makes things stronger. So when Pluto gets that boost from Jupiter, this is unexpected growth. Now, one of my friends pointed out that Jupiter and Pluto have been conjunct at other times when there were pandemics. Yes, I did research on that, and I will make a clip on that very soon coming. It is interesting, it is true. However, it needs more than just Jupiter and Pluto. It needs quite a few of the difficult planets also being in significant positions and in difficult aspects to truly make this become a big problem. We have, though, as you might see here, Saturn and Mars in close conjunction, as these two were exactly aligned. However, they were separating, and so was the black moon separating from Chiron. So we could say when Jupiter and Pluto finally met, when they had their reboot, these issues of Mars and Saturn and Chiron and the black moon already were on their decline. So this is another good sign that we are already in the phase of improvement, and that Pluto and Jupiter so close to the ascendant, that is a great sign that speaks of that better times are coming, that this is just an initial kind of bump in the road. We have to wait out and work with it, do the best we can with it. Also, there is that trine 120-degree angle between SEDNA, Jupiter and Pluto, and Pallas, which implies that this separation and social distancing overall has a beneficial and positive frequency in the bigger picture. It is difficult, certainly, and challenging for many people, but the outcome will be much better than we might expect. That's kind of what this chart implies. Now, if we move on to the next one, full moon, that is the chart for just a few days ago, and again, how about that? What are the odds? Full moon in Greenwich, when the moon and the sun are exactly at the same degree, you have SEDNA at the 4th house cusp, exactly repeating the energy, doubling down, amplifying it again. Pluto and Jupiter even more exact at the ascendant. So it is really that concentration of energy within us which generates a breakthrough of a much bigger something we cannot really understand yet. Also Pallas, this is in the sign of the architect. It's a whole new creation of intelligent interaction and thought and planning. Interesting also that this segment of the zodiac where all this occurs, there's so much has been happening in the last few months that's ruled by, one could say, by this hexagram 61, inner truth, which is again an energy which is very internal, which dives deep to the center to find out what's right and what's wrong without being influenced too much by what's going on around. It's really a probing the core of everything, going to the very root of what we experience and see. If we go now to the next chart, and okay, from here on it gets interesting. Now we are on the path of finding out how much longer we will be in this tie down, in this social distancing thing. So anyway, so here we have Saturn. Saturn is up here. This is Mars here, this little line. So Mars is already closer to the ascendant than Saturn, so we can expect already by around 22nd, 23rd of April that there is more Mars energy coming in here, more movement, you could say. Also the Sun, the Moon and Uranus will be closely aligned around that new moon time. However, there will be a square to Saturn, so we can't really say that this crisis will be over by then yet, which we all know. We do expect that. We know it's probably will last at least into the end of this month, and if we now go to that same moment in Washington DC, I'm showing you this chart now because in my opinion, and I guess you all agree with me, the center of action, the hub of what's going on our planet is really Washington DC, has been for a while. So that's why these charts for Washington DC also are really important and meaningful. What is interesting here is that Neptune, the fourth house cusp, that indicates that there will be still confusion. We still will be under that impact of not really knowing where to go, what to do, what is true and what is not. Also, this is the degree of the American chart's black moon up here, 1928 to be exact. So we are still here in the Americas probably under that fear and scare of what is really going on. People won't know yet fully by then. There will be pretty much the same situation as still is. If we go to the next chart, now here, this is an interesting chart. This is the midpoint chart of the April 22nd new moon with the American nations chart. It's kind of the hinge, and it is interesting that here we have a Saturn Sun conjunction, and I tell you already that the American nations Uranus is at 855 Gemini. So that is interesting in its own way, and Saturn, Uranus, the Sun in the ascendant, descendant with Jupiter and Moon up here. So I'm expecting that around this time we will see some major moves to get some of the people under indictments, some indictments opened, some high-level people, and it will be quite outrageous what we will experience. Moon and Jupiter is always loud and prominent. Everybody looks, something's going on. And the Sun here, that midpoint Sun on Uranus, and we will see quite a few more Uranus signatures. I'm just showing you the next chart quickly, which is inside the American nations chart. Here you have Uranus, and outside we have the same chart we just looked at, the midpoint chart, which is May 30th, 1898. That is exactly halfway between the Americans nations birth, if you want to say, July 4, 1776, and our present moment. So this is kind of a hinge, that moment. And this is a very powerful technique we can use in our own lives and pretty much for everything and anything. That midpoint is kind of the silent point in between, and it's in many ways even stronger than transiting planets. So what we can expect here is, yes, that there will be quite an uproar around that time, after April 20, roughly spoken. Now, I will get back into that when we're getting closer to the whole thing. Now, I'm just quickly here rolling further into the future. Next full moon will be May 7. Now we have the moon at 17 degrees Scorpio, the sun at 17 Taurus, and that's again the Greenwich chart. And what we see here is Saturn is now here, and this is Mars up here, and what I wanted you to see, let me just think here for a second what is really standing out. I guess it's right. I think I wanted to just show you how prominent Uranus again is, and Aries, and the Sun. Around that time, early May, there will be still quite a reverberation of all the shuffles and revelations which we have been seeing in that 2-week period, and that is the same chart for Washington DC. And I will have to, okay, that stood out. Okay, we have SEDNA again here, very close to the ascendant, and an indication that most likely here in North America we still will feel the impact of that situation we are in right now. It won't be over yet. Yes, and then we have Uranus here squaring that midheaven and midnight point. That's another indication that there's still quite some tremors. Now let's just quickly go to the next one here. That's again the midpoint chart between the American nations chart and that full moon of May 7. And here you have Saturn high up at the 10th house, the rule of law. This definitely hints at that we will have some major moves in the opening of indictments we can expect. Also the Sun-Pluto conjunction here indicates that powerful moves can be expected around that time. Moon SEDNA square again hinting at that things are still quite locked down by early May, that is. And then the new moon of May 22nd, that seems to be around the time when things start seriously opening up. Uranus at the 7th house cusp kind of indicates that life comes back, that all of a sudden we are able again to do what we would like to do most, to meet others, to have an interesting social life. That's what Uranus at the 7th house cusp would indicate. And the same moment for Washington DC now shows again Pluto and Jupiter at the ascendant, and meanwhile SEDNA is over here, so no more directly affecting the 4th house cusp. Jupiter and Pluto are the major influences here. The Moon opposing Mars and the Sun, squaring the Sun. Another indication that there is movement, activity, energy coming back. Pluto, Jupiter, as I said before, is a boost of change, motion. So we can expect by late May things are pretty much back to normal. We have waited out that crisis, and I will definitely get more into these upcoming alignments. I just wanted to give you a quick breakdown of what we can see in astrology. Thanks for joining and listening here and being with me for this time, and I will keep you posted on what's coming next. Okay, have a lovely day and enjoy your private time. Be creative. Do the things you always wanted to do and you never had time for. Have a wonderful day. Okay, bye-bye.